And what's up, hockey fans, and welcome to episode number 103 of Marty's Illegal Stick, brought to you by the Sports History Network. I'm your host, Scott Kinville, and guys, I can't believe it, but the season is over. Can
Thank
you
God.
actually? Can you? Yeah, I know, right? It almost feels like this. That you can take a breath again, right? I mean, that's the whole. I love hockey, but sometimes when it drags into June like that, and especially when you get to the finals and you just don't care about either team, it's like, so what? We're going to go over that. And before we get going with that, I want to make sure everybody who's listening knows who our co-hosts are, because these are the guys that stir the drink on this show. They really are. First off, I miss getting 10 days off for a cold. Well, you're in the wrong season for that, pal. But it's Ed Stefaniak. What's going on, pal?
Oh, nothing much. I'm just starting to miss being laid off again. I had so much free time. So much money, so much free time. It was
right.
Great. It was
maybe. Well, then there you go. Your next step is to try to get fired.
I've been trying for 5 years. They won't do it.
Well, see that you're such a valuable employee, they just can't let you go. That's all there is to it. Oh man! And our other co-host, he's just come back to us. He's been out traveling for a little bit, enjoying some concerts. He's the one. He's the only. Chris Mazzotti. What's up, pal?
Hey, man. Yeah, I was up in Saratoga Springs for 2 days of Dead and Company final tour, and ran into a bunch of hockey fans since I wore my Rangers hat, as I usually do, and a lot of talk about like what's gonna happen, and ran into a nice Bruins fan parked right next to us, and I was like bragging about how great his team did, and then I told him, and then you lost to the 8th place Florida Panthers in the first round. He goes, "Yeah, that hurt." he had nothing else to say about it. He was just like, "Yeah."
Yeah, then he was like, I was going to buy you a beer and I'll forget
it. He looked like somebody who lost a child. He was just like, "Yeah, that hurt. That hurt."
I'm sure it did. Well, you know what, though? The team that beat them, the Florida Panthers, made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Final, where they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. I got to be 100% candid with you guys. I really didn't get into this series too much. It was what it was.
You mean you didn't want to watch a 7-2 hockey game?
Well, here's the thing. I had this feeling, and we talked about this last show, that long layoff was going to really, really hurt Florida, and it was only too obvious. I mean, where were they off? 10 days? I mean, granted, that was going to happen when you sweep your opponent and the other team goes 6 games in their series. But then the NHL turned around after Vegas beats Dallas in Game 6 and decides to wait 5 days to start the finals up. And at that point, any momentum that Florida had, gone. Forget about it. And I'm not saying that as an excuse. But I'm just saying that anybody who plays any kind of sports knows once you're out of your rhythm like that, it's going to be a really tough road. And frankly, I'm not surprised that Vegas did what they did. What are you guys' thoughts on that series?
I just think that the NHL, they seem to go out of their way to screw things up. And having that layoff and then having 2 days in between for travel. Like, I don't remember LA, New York getting 2 days.
No.
Like, I don't remember that at all. And those games were going to overtime every game. Like, so it was just, I watched game 1. I was like, okay, Vegas, seem to have the edge. And I'm like, Florida's going to pick it up. They've been down before in all these series, and they pick it up, but I think you're right. I think the layoff, the 2 days in between games, you're giving the other, both teams are getting time to heal up, except for apparently Matt Tkachuk, who ruptured his femur.
No, he broke his sternum.
Sternum.
Yeah.
And they're like, maybe Game 7. I'm like, maybe Game 7. Like, that's why the Department of Player Safety is a joke. Because why are we having these guys play hurt in the playoffs? Like, you can't tell me all year it's about safety. And then the second the playoffs happen, it's like, well, this guy was playing with a broken ankle. This guy was playing, like what are we doing, guys? Like, this is the reason you have farm systems, and I don't care if it ends up being 7 guys from the AHL playing in the Stanley Cup Final. Like, I don't think these guys should be allowed to play that hurt. Like, it's pretty crazy because you hear it all the time. The coach will say, "Well, any other time of the year he'd be out." Like,
Right.
well, that's for safety. So why is he not out now for safety? Like, you know.
Right.
It's all
But it wasn't a very compelling series to watch. TNT's coverage is fine, but like starting games at 8:00, and I don't know. There was a chance to have like one of them in the afternoon, and they didn't. And I was just like, why didn't they put that Sunday game on at like 4 or something or 3? Like, like I don't know. It just seemed like the scheduling screwed everything up. If there was anyone, like if you're a hockey fan, or if you just became a hockey fan this playoffs, and you caught wind on the Florida Panthers or something like that, or even Vegas, you're a fan of one of these teams that you're like, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. By the time the Cup Final came around, are you even sure, like, when it's going on, when it's happening, what channel it's on? Like, sorry, TNT does not get as many subscribers as ESPN. Like, TNT's not on every service at all. It's not on Fubo, which a lot of people use. Like, and you saw the ratings were terrible. Like, ratings are down like over 2 million points of viewers or something.
43%. And you're right about the TNT thing, but the sad part is that TNT's coverage was so much better.
Yeah.
And I'm just
except for Bizinet, I'll agree.
Right. I mean, everyone's going to hope, right? But overall, I mean, TNT's coverage blew ESPN's out of the water. I'm sorry.
They have so much more personality. I mean, ESPN is just, you might as well be listening to just idiots talk because they're such a joke on ESPN. They have 90% of that network doesn't care about hockey. Like, just listening to Stephen A. Smith, I don't know anything about hockey besides the puck is black. That's all he knows. I fully believe him.
Yeah.
So either ESPN steps up their game and has the TNT broadcasts on ESPN because they're owned by the same company, or I believe they're owned by Disney.
And they don't even keep the hockey or the NHL logo in the same spot on the goddamn app. Like, it's like
changes every day.
Every time it's in a different spot. Sometimes it's behind like bull riding. And it's like, how are you guys pushing this product if all you do is, today we're going to make it the 6th thing to pick on sports. Tomorrow it's going to be the 12th. Then it's going to be the 18th, right behind high school girls field hockey. And then there's ice hockey. Oh, there it is. Oh, NHL, great. Like, then why do
it's a joke.
And is their broadcast? I don't think their broadcast is bad. I think they gave up on some things that they shouldn't have too early. Like, they did this thing when they first started called Sounds of the Game, where the announcers stopped talking for like a minute or two and just let you hear what's on the ice. That was awesome. And they gave it like 2 games and got rid of it. And I was like, what? Like, oh, somebody complained. They thought they thought something was broke. Good. Let them think that. You got the thing in the corner saying Sounds of the Game. If they can't read, that's their problem. Like, I don't understand. Like, that was good. Their hosts are bad. I don't think anybody likes the guy who does the announcing. Steve, I think it's Steve. It's not Buchengrass. Doesn't bother me. It's the other guy.
Studio host.
The in-game commentary guy they give to like.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah, he ain't great at all. No. They could use a better host. They already got rid of Chelios. Messier is fine. Like, Messier is just as good as Lundqvist on giving insight, or Gretzky.
The best part about Messier is you can tell when he's irritated. He just doesn't hide it.
No, that's what's great. Yes, that is what's great about it. When somebody says something stupid and he's like, I don't agree with that at all. Like, good. Like, that's good because we need somebody who actually knows hockey to be sitting there. Chris Chelios actually knows hockey, but he's probably drunk. And, and that's probably why they got rid of him. Because from reading Sean Avery's book, I don't think Chris Chelios has been sober for a minute for 40 years. I could be wrong about that, but Avery's book pretty well dictates how much Chelios drinks. And it's a lot.
What, though, if he could drink
making Wade Boggs look like a sober person.
Yeah.
Ooh, that much?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
You're talking drinking going into practice, practicing a full, hard, great practice, and then puking your guts out after practice and going back to drinking. Like Chris Chelios, who played forever, could probably still be playing. He's so fit. Like, ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, powers of beer.
They really do need to like get more hockey personalities. Like, I'm sick of like you watch ESPN itself, like you watch SportsCenter, they don't know they don't cover it.
No, they don't. And that's, you know what, that's really irritating. And I was going to say that earlier. I'm glad you brought that up, Ed, because when ESPN got the NHL back, I thought it was going to be, right even with the NBA coverage on SportsCenter, right? Nope. And then you turn on SportsCenter in the morning, and it's still like 45 minutes of the NBA, maybe 5 to 10 minutes of the NHL, and then they talk about something else.
Yeah, and then they talk in between then they put like competitive dog shows.
Yeah, right.
Like, it might as well be on ESPN 8 the Ocho. Like, it's a joke.
ESPN SportsCenter may as well be called TV in 1988 because, like, I don't know who watches it. I don't know why you guys watch it. There's nothing on there for me to watch.
I watch it because I'm bored.
If you like a baseball team, you go watch their highlights online. Why would I tune into SportsCenter? They're not going to talk about. First of all, they're not going to talk about my teams anyway. They hardly ever talk about. I mean, they'll talk about the Yankees if there's a game coming up, but they kind of try to stay away from talking about the Yankees because they don't want to be the Yankees network, and they don't want to keep paying licensing rights for showing games and stuff like that. So they stick with like, we're going to do 20 minutes about the Kansas City Royals. Then we're going to do 10 minutes about New Orleans basketball. And, it's like, and then we're going to talk about football, just Aaron Rodgers for 30 minutes. Like, it's like, I don't know why to watch it. I've tried turning it on and stuff, and I like those guys. Like, I like Scott Van Pelt and stuff like that. And he likes hockey, but like, even during the playoffs, it's just like, okay, the game ended, SportsCenter's on. He's like, we're going to get to all the highlights of what we just saw. And all, like, okay, so you're not just SportsCenter tonight. You're the post-game coverage. And it's like 5 minutes and then on to the rest of the show. Like,
on to the NBA Finals highlights.
Yeah. And, man, talk about NBA Finals. What a terrible year for Florida to make the Stanley Cup Finals. like they didn't even get ratings in their state because everybody's watching Miami. Like, it's
almost like that franchise is cursed. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is.
But, going back to that final series, just the actual hockey itself, regardless of who was covering it, I mean, did you expect this? Did you really think that – and let me ask you this. Was Vegas this good, or was it just a matter of Florida basically turning back into Florida?
I think
maybe a little bit of both.
I definitely think it's a little bit of both. It hit midnight and the carriage turned into a pumpkin back again. But they're also a victim of circumstance. Like you said, the 10-day layoff. Bobrovsky is a goalie that needs to play.
Right.
He absolutely needs to play. 10 days is going to kill him.
Yeah.
It absolutely did. 9-3. That's how he ended the season, was a 9-3 game.
Yeah. He deserved
better than terrible, too. He looked not good.
Yeah. Well, and like as much as
the whole team looked not good in that last
game.
The
whole team looked not good the whole series. Like, even the one win, like, I think Vegas just threw it so they could win on home ice. They saw how they were dominating. Like, what was it, 7-2, 5-2. Then they lost one, and then they won two more. They knew what they were doing.
Right. Well, I tell you, I do think that once they realized that Matt Tkachuk wasn't coming back,
it was done.
That was the end of it.
I think that took the steam out of him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about his antics on the ice and all that, but I tell you, I've gained a heck of a lot more respect for Matt Tkachuk in these playoffs than I've ever had. And I mean, the guy played through a broken sternum in Game 4. I couldn't even imagine that. Did you see his brother actually had to help him put his clothes and his gear on?
Yeah.
He couldn't even do it himself, and he still put himself in the lineup, which goes back to your point, Mazzotti. How is anybody not saying, wait a minute, this might not be a good
You
idea?
can't freaking dress yourself.
Yeah.
You can't play. That should be the bottom line at minimum. Like, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And, like, look at the kid who got to play for him. That kid almost scored on his first shift in the last game there.
Right.
I can't even remember his name. But I remember, like, I'm like, who the hell is that kid? I think it started with, like, Veep or Volpe or something. He was on the line with
He was out with Barkov and Reinhardt.
No,
right?
he was on the fourth line.
Oh, was he?
And the first time the fourth line went out, he almost scored. And they were like, wow, talk about taking a chance of your opportunity. Maybe if that kid was in game 1 or 2, whenever Kachuk, got hurt, then we could have, done something about it. But
it's up to these teams too.
Can't do anything after the fact. Like, one game for a kid, like, sure. What if he scored that goal? It would have been 1-0 Florida, and you never know. But, like, what this series came down to for me is the same thing it comes down to every year: lack of officiating, the letting him play. Because let me tell you something: the bottom line on this series was Vegas was faster, and interference was fully allowed. Fully allowed. Nobody got called for interference. And it was everywhere. I mean, every single play. I'm like, that's interference. That's interference. That's interference. It was just ridiculous. I'm like, I guess we just don't call interference anymore. And then they called one, and it was like for nothing. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you just hit like 6 blatant, terrible guy dumps the puck in. Goes to skate around, gets pushed. That's interference. Like, what are you doing? That was all okay. But then there was like one where the puck was like a little further, and that they called. I was like, that has nothing to do with it. Like, it's still interference. Like, it was mind blowing me. I'm watching the Stanley Cup Final, and like, this is the ugliest, crappiest hockey. Like, I don't want to watch this. I'm a hockey fan. I don't think this is hockey at all. Like, this would not fly any time in the regular season. Any time it would have been 100 penalties in that game 6. But no, Stanley Cup's on the line, so let's just put them away. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It totally deflates their product. And I don't know when they won't fix this until Bettman is gone. Because it's going to take somebody new at the top to be like, we got to fix this. Fans have spoken. It's ugly. Nobody's watching at our biggest time of the year. We have the most famous trophy in the world, and nobody gives a crap. Like, that's a problem. Like, that's a at the core problem with your product. Like, I don't know how the NHL doesn't say, like, what do we do? What's going on? What's wrong? Why is it the playoffs ratings are going down? Like, but our regular season ratings aren't that bad. Like, well, guys, look at what you're doing. Look at what you're allowing the officials to do. And if those officials are like too scared to call, bring up new officials. Because let me tell you, AHL refs don't give a crap. They'll call whatever. Like,
is that what you've learned from these playoffs, Chris?
What I learned is Brett Howden is now a Stanley Cup champion. The Edmonton Oilers made the wrong choice in Connor McDavid.
There's a hot take.
It really, I mean, I'm sorry. Did Jack Eichel not like single-handedly almost between him and Marchessault win this series? I mean, that was it. I mean, everyone's like, Vegas is stacked top to bottom. Like, Brett Howden is on your third line. That's not stacked. He's not good. Like, I don't know how he's scoring. How is he scoring? Jack Eichel. Like, Marchessault. He's got guys around him that are setting him up. He doesn't have Dryden, Hunt, and I don't even know who the other guy was on his line. Oh, Dryden Hunt and Ryan Reeves. Yeah. So, maybe that should teach some other teams something about players they trade for that are supposed to be good. Maybe you put them with better players. Lafreniere. So, that's one thing you might learn. Like, oh, we got to give these guys more ice time with better caliber players. We can't just stack our lines like that. We're never going to develop. Like, Vegas had a solid lineup throughout. And yeah, Florida wasn't beating that. Florida didn't have that. Like, Florida it was amazing how far Florida got. Let's be real.
Well,
it was amazing they got past Boston.
Was playing through. He broke
What's that?
When you hear what Aaron Ekblad was playing through, one of their star defensemen, broke his foot in the first round against Boston, and he was also playing with a torn oblique. It's just it's insane what.
And he looked like crap. He was awful. I was watching that game, and I'm like, Ekblad needs to step this up. I didn't know he had a broken foot in a oblique.
Yeah.
Like, get him out of there. Like it's never better. I remember I think it was 2006 when the Rangers were like coming off of a playoff drought of 6 years. They made the playoffs at the last minute. They had to play the Devils in the first round. They got swept by the Devils. And in the last game, it was talk that like, oh, Jágr might be hurt, but he's going to play and all this stuff. And it's like, don't play him. Put in somebody else. Like, put in somebody who's not hurt. And what happened? The very first play of the game, he tries to take a cheap shot at somebody and re-injures his shoulder and has to leave the game. First shift. So now you're down the whole game. Like, it doesn't help anybody. Like, I don't understand this mentality. I mean, do you guys understand that? I get, you guys play, and it's a high chance situation. I understand all that. But, like, a broken goddamn foot, you can't put your own clothes on. It's.
So I've played through hurt. I've never played through injured. I've played bruised ribs, pulled muscles, never torn, nothing ever torn. But I agree with you. Like, if you're that injured or you're that high risk of injury, you're putting your team at a detriment, not just yourself. Like, these guys always use the excuse, it's for the team. I'm playing because I want my team to win. I want the boys to celebrate. Well, you're not doing a great job if you're going to play with a broken sternum or a torn oblique. Like, not for nothing, they set their team back. You can't put your gear on? Then why play? Why you're already a detriment. You take a puck in the wrong spot, which is a high likelihood, you're done. Not just potentially for the game, the next season, potentially for your career. It's a broken sternum. That could kill you. You get hit in the right spot, it's puncturing your heart. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, you're 100% right, because it's not doing it for the team. It's doing it for yourself. It's completely selfish. Yeah. It's completely and it's an ego thing. Like, they can't win without me. I got to do what I can for them. That's ridiculous. Like, do what you can. Sit the hell out, heal the hell up, and let somebody else play. Like,
it's smoking
mentor one of these AHL guys. Give them some, gusto to go out there and do a good job for you. Like,
I agree with you. I'm 100% on your side.
It's not good for an NHL either. You're putting a bad product on the ice,
especially new TV deal.
It's not good.
No, it's not. It is bad for the sport, And then what? Your star players who played throughout all the playoffs, hurt or injured, now have to sit the whole next season like Kucherov. Yep. What's the point?
What did you learn from these playoffs?
I learned that the NHL does not care about timing. Like you said earlier, the additional 5 days off after Vegas won, like, No, get these guys playing. They all want to play. I learned that TNT, as good of a product as it puts out, like I do like the TNT panel. I do like, as much as Mazzotti doesn't, I like Bissonnette. I like Gretzky. I like that whole panel. I like how they toss in Charles Barkley every now and then. And it's so filled with personality. It's on the wrong channel. All of it is. All of it is. Put that on, on literally any other streaming service. If the NHL was strictly like Disney Plus, it'd be so much better, because at least then they'd have a dedicated, that'd be the Disney Plus sport instead of ESPN, who, like Mazzotti said, is behind darts some days. Like it's behind the PBA. You can't find it. You can't. There are days where I want to watch a game and I'm at work and I go on the app and I'm like, where's hockey? It was up here in the top yesterday, but that's because McDavid was playing. Today, it's like, you have the Blue Jackets versus Red Wings is the only game. You're never going to find it. They bury those games.
Right.
And they do an awful job with promoting star players, they should have done pieces in between periods of all the star players. Kachuk, talk about his father, his upbringing, talk about Barkov, instead it's just, goofy antics. Yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
They don't promote players. They don't promote, they talked a bit about the 96 Panthers in the beginning of that finals.
Right.
And that's about it. Like they didn't talk about how the Panthers became, how the Golden Knights became.
Well, in all fairness, we have heard many times over and over again how the Vegas Golden Knights were misfits. And it's not, they got 6 years of history. So it's kind of hard to.
So I really do think Vegas winning is the best outcome for the NHL out of all this, because now Vegas will be a hockey town. Like they will be behind Vegas before they're behind the Raiders and their future NBA team and the Oakland A's when they move there in a couple years.
Yeah.
So they I think it is good that Vegas won. I think it's suspicious. I don't think the game's rigged at all. But I think the lack of calls kind of shows it's about as rigged as it can get for the NHL. But it is good for the sport in the long run. They will always Vegas, the Golden Knights, the NHL will always have the first title in Vegas history. And possibly the only one. I mean, the caliber of teams they have there outside of the Golden Knights is garbage. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, the Vegas Raiders still doesn't sound right.
Vegas Raiders doesn't sound right.
I screw that up so much every year.
Yeah.
Every year, I'm like, I forget they're in Vegas. Like, I'll be like, oh, it's not Oakland. Like,
yeah, right.
And then the A's are probably going to be there in a couple years. Yeah, if that's long term. And they're not
in a dome.
But they're going to be a joke for another decade, and that's minimum. So at least they got the monkey off their back. So they did get a championship, and it will always be the first championship in Vegas history. Will always be the NHL. So they can hang their hat on that, and I do like that. I'm happy for Bruce Cassidy. Phil Kessel has the easiest 3 rings in history. By far.
Kessel, come on.
By far. I know, by far.
Honestly, that kills me. That he wasn't even playing. I'm like, he didn't even get to play. He was available at the deadline. How many teams that got knocked out could have used Phil Kessel? I'm sorry. Every one of them. Every single one of those teams could have used a Phil Kessel on their team.
But you know what, though, Mazzotti?
Every GM lost that.
You bring me what I learned about the playoffs. And I'm glad you said that, because what I learned is that the trade deadline is completely overrated. Completely. Every year you see teams just go all in, thinking that they're going to vastly improve their team by giving away picks and prospects and this and that for that quick fix. take a look at Vegas and take a look at Florida. What'd they do at the deadline?
I'll tell you.
Not much.
You're going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with you, Scott.
Okay.
Because I think that Vegas's trade deadline was I think they won that deadline, and I think that's why they won the cup.
Barbashev, right? But what I'm talking about
Ivan Barbashev. He was
exactly.
So
I'm talking about the big.
He was the Matt Tkachuk of that team,
right?
No doubt.
My point is the big swing for the fences. You know how teams. Well, we're going to give away 3 first-round picks for this guy because we think that's what I'm talking about.
You're absolutely right on that. Yes, but the trade deadline as a whole is very influential. Going after the big piece, that's what you do not need to do. If you're making the playoffs already, you need the Ivan Barbashev. And according to what I found out after is a lot of teams weren't on Barbashev, including the Rangers. But Vegas is the one that won him. And it's like, well, maybe Rangers, if you weren't going after Patrick Kane, you could have taken Barbashev. But live and learn, and that's it. But Barbashev, that guy is due. Like, I don't know where he's going, but he would be my number 1 free agent's pickup.
Yeah, he's going to get paid by somebody for sure. But you know what? I'm glad you said that too. Boy, I tell you, we are just flowing today. We're flowing like the river flows down to the sea. This is awesome. We'll shift gears here from one coach who was fired last year and won the Stanley Cup in Vegas. I don't want to throw any salt in your wound there, Ed, but
no, you're fine. It was time. It was time.
Rangers, who have recently hired Peter Laviolette as their coach to replace Gerard Gallant. Mazzotti, what do you think about this?
First of all, remember, Gerard Gallant was not fired. They parted ways mutually.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. They said, Gerard, you didn't win. What the hell? And he was like, F you guys. Why don't we just call it quits?
Let's walk away before we say something that's going to hurt your feelings.
I know my time. It's 2 years. My time is up. I'm out.
That guy cannot hold a job.
Ridiculous. I do think it was valid for him to be gone. But Laviolette, I think every Rangers fan will say, and I've seen a bunch of comments online, was like, best available guy now. That's it. It's not that he was the guy we needed all along. It's not like, oh, now things are going to, there's no feeling like, okay, next season's going to be great because now we got Laviolette.
Right.
We'll have more structure. I assume we'll be harder to score against. We have a very good goaltender. So that may indicate a lot more wins, which I am fine with. Will it be exciting hockey to watch? Probably not. Was Gallant's hockey exciting to watch? Not all the time. But when they were scoring, when they were clicking, man, when they played that AHL Nashville Predators team before some of those Predators got healed up for their, March run, I think they played them the first week of March. That was 3 lines are from the AHL. The Rangers, they were playing. That was such a fun game to watch. I don't care that they were playing inferior opponents. It was click, 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 score. It was click, 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 score. It was just they were doing stuff they knew they were playing inferior guys, so they were getting creative with it, and they were playing. But it was Gallant's failure because Gallant should have taken that videotape and said, okay, now see, these guys weren't doing these things, but this is how creative you guys always need to be, for this system to work. You need to always be this creative. You need to always be, looking in the back door or dropping for a back pass or whatever, creative thing you're looking for to get around opponents. But he didn't do anything like that. They were well, we know we didn't want to embarrass them, and they moved on to the next game where they got shellacked. So it was you got to use those types of things as learning things for the team. And I don't feel like Gallant's that type of coach. I just don't. I feel like he's just go out there and play, guys, and I'll yell a little bit at a ref.
Right.
And, not ever challenge anything for my goaltender unless it's sure to be a penalty against us. Like it's. But Laviolette has Rangers history. He came up through the minors of the Rangers system. He earned his way up to the NHL. He didn't play a lot for the Rangers, but he had 12 games or something like that. You know, and who were his roommates in the minors? It was Mike Richter and Brian Leach. So, so there might have been a little bit of influence on who Drury was going to pick, since those guys are still consultants with the team. Like, I don't know, but
I have a little bit to do with it.
Richter was. I read an article on the Athletic, and Richter was saying, like, this guy's earned it. He was undrafted. He made his way onto the U.S. Olympic team. He made his way into the minor. He got signed by an NHL team. Made it, played some games, became a coach, like won a cup. People forget that he's a cup winner. Like, so he's been there. He does know what it takes to win. But the problem is the Rangers don't have a Rod Brindamore on their roster. That's the problem. Yeah. Now, we do have Brennan Hoffman coming, who's supposed to be real tough as well as a scorer. So we'll see what happens with that kid. But I just think they're going to have more structure. I think it was the best hire that they had available. I would have rather had Quenneville or something, but they didn't want to wait to see what's going on with him.
Right.
And I don't think they wanted the, backlash of anything either.
That's big.
I think that's why they didn't want Babcock. Because of that same reason. They didn't want any backlash.
Babcock would have been far less backlash.
There's somebody on the team that was on one of the teams where he was bullied or something, because they were like, oh, no, they're not going to get him because that would be really bad for that player or something like that. I was
at least Babcock didn't hide a sexual assault.
Yeah, there's that. But I'll tell you, I am looking at cap friendly right now for the Rangers. Now, they do have almost $12 million going into this offseason. Got some holes in the lineup. You got 8 forwards that are signed. Obviously, you're going to lose Patrick Kane. Nobody's going to doubt that. He's probably done for his career.
He's not done. He had surgery. He's going to play in November. He'll sign for some team for a mil 5 or something. Watch.
I could see him going to Buffalo.
I can see that just to go home kind of deal. And especially now that the Sabres are actually on the rise.
Right.
But with the Rangers, the one free agent that's really jumping out at me, and it's not Vlad Tarasenko, it's Tyler Mott, believe it or not. Because he's one of those character guys that you really need on your team. And NHL.com just put an article on this. I was looking down. It says Laviolette believes Rangers have the skill, but they must compete harder to win the cup. So I think maybe in this offseason, that's what Drury's going to be looking for, is those high compete guys. And not necessarily your superstars, the guy, he's supposed to be scoring 40 goals a year. I truly believe to win the cup, you've got to be able to have those kind of guys on your team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really
I agree with you guys.
You look at every cup champion, you could pick out who kind of was the lifeblood of those teams. And it's very rarely the star player. Like, look at the 2011 Bruins. You had that fourth line that was so pivotal. You had Michael Ryder, Andrew Ference on defense. Like, the star players, they got the points, but they rallied off the backs of those third and fourth liners who worked extra hard. They were the intangibles.
Sure. Those are the guys that win you the cup right there. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. You'll never change my mind on that one. But, the thing is, too, in looking at some of the stuff that's going on around the league, and not to shift gears on you guys or anything, but I'm going to, Oliver Ekman-Larsson was just recently bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. It did not work out. I think he was 4 years into that $8 million or 8-year deal. The thing is, though, is that Arizona traded him to the Canucks and retained salary. So because Vancouver bought him out, not only does Vancouver lose their retained salary spot, but Arizona does too. And I don't think that's right. I think that's something that's really got to be fixed, because how do you punish a team 4 years down the road when that team buys out that player and you did that team a favor 4 years ago by retaining salary to facilitate the trade? Why is it Arizona's fault that it didn't work out in Vancouver for them? And do you think that maybe going forward, should this apply to the LTIR trade? Because you see that a lot, right? These LTIR, these contracts that get traded just to have that extra cap space. And then they just kind of sit on the sidelines for, look at Brett Seabrook, for example, right? So what do they got to do to fix this? Because, it's getting kind of out of hand now. And especially a franchise like Arizona that is just completely struggling as it is. And now you just took another thing away from them.
It definitely is something that's probably going to have to be negotiated in the next CBA, because these owners don't want to pay for somebody to sit on the sidelines. As much as like it looks good, like, in the sense of like, oh, we can just buy it, deal this contract and just have the cap space and give it to somebody who he's, like Arizona profits from it. But I think like next CBA that the owners are going to see this and be like, wait, so we're paying this guy not to play for anybody for 4 years. Like it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Like this league has done nothing but disappoint. And like Oliver Ekman-Larsson isn't bad. He just did not fit with the Canucks system.
You know what I think they should do? I think they should have a 1 compliance buyout every 3 years.
Yeah, I like that idea.
You get 1 mulligan every 3 years. I think players would go for that because they're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Right? And, I know it kind of encourages wild spending and wild contracts, but at the end of the day, the players want to make money, right? And the owners want to bring in these star players. So if it doesn't work out, okay, it doesn't work out. Here's your money. Sorry, it didn't work out. Now we got to wait another 3 years before we can make another mistake and buy that out too.
I think Minnesota would love this rule.
Well, it would have helped them out a little bit anyways.
I think there's something to that. I also think like maybe you should restrict buying out the other way then, like if you're going to give them 1, like then you can, we're going to use our compliance in this guy and the other 3 guys will just buy him out and deal with it. Like, I think that should be restricted too then, or something, because it makes headlines when they make a big signing, like it's good for the league and news in the off season. Like the beginning of July is one of my favorite times for hockey. Because I love free agency. I love the draft. Like, that's all great. Of course, you won't see any promotion of it on ESPN for 6 weeks out like they do the NFL. Like, when it's the end of the football Super Bowl and they're talking like, oh, well, what are we going to do at the draft? Like, it's like, whoa, the season just ended. Like, but no, like that's, it's okay for football, not for hockey.
Same thing with the NBA. It's like 8 hours after the NBA finals. It's like, oh, yeah, no, these guys are upcoming free agents. How much do you think they go for and who do you think they're going to? And then, like, hockey, it's like July 3rd. They're like, hey, free agency started.
Yeah.
And, just a double whammy for the league. I think this is going to be like the most boring free agent class ever.
But
there are no huge names coming up.
If Ekman-Larsson just got bought out, I think he'd be a great fit on the third line for the Rangers.
He'd be a good fit on a third pairing for anybody, really.
I mean, that would be him and Schneider. Like, Schneider would be the rough guy, and he would be the playmaker. I mean, that would be really good. I can see that working really well. But you were talking about the Rangers cap issues. They they got to re-sign Keandre Miller. They got to re-sign Lafreniere. Luckily, they don't have to give Lafreniere too much because he played like crap all playoffs and most of the year.
Well, you got to get a backup goalie, too.
We got to get a backup goalie. I don't know if Halak's coming back or not. It looks like he's not. But
he's 38 years old. He might just retire.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. He might be just done. But they don't necessarily have to sign a backup goalie because they could bring up Duran from the AHL and start him up. He had a pretty good year down there. Probably time to get him up to the NHL anyway. So and let him, get mentored by Igor. That nothing wrong with that. I don't think so.
And then you could trade him to a West Coast contender in 3 years.
and buy him out and then get hit with the cap compliance or your retained salary.
Yeah, that's crazy. But it is the NHL has a real issue with this whole cap structure because the final thing I learned from these NHL playoffs is if you're someplace with no taxes, you can win a Stanley Cup. Because that's what we've learned the last few years. Tampa, Vegas. Oh, what do these have in common? Warm weather, no state taxes.
Yeah, I think they definitely got to start figuring out something within the salary cap to even the
they need to make it a soft cap, a luxury tax. You want these good players, then you pay the luxury tax.
It doesn't even need to be that, Ed. All it needs to be is like a mathematical formula to say like, oh, you have a state with 0%, then we're gonna who has the highest tax, and we're just gonna percentage all that out between all the teams so that each team has a little bit of a different cap. That's all it needs to be. So instead of what's the cap now? 81 million?
It's going up $1 million next year. So
it's like 82.
It'll be like 82 million.
So next year,
so Florida only gets 78. Vegas only gets they have a 1% tax or 2%. So Vegas gets 80. Stuff like that. Dallas has nothing. They are 78. Oh, the Rangers have 26%, so they get 89. Whatever it is. But that's what they need to do. They need to make it. If it's going to be a salary cap and fair amongst the teams, it needs to be fair across the tax structure as well.
And I'm sorry, the escrow these players play is a joke.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So you're paying these guys to play in your league, but then you're also charging them to play in your league. It's like if they have like an $8 million contract, let's say we'll use Connor McDavid's contract for example. His is like what, 10 million? He makes 10 million a year.
No, he makes 12 and a half.
12 and a half. Then he probably sees 4.5.
Well, especially with the tax rate, he's probably paying in Alberta.
That's my other point. Yeah,
the Alberta and the Canada tax rate mixed with the escrow, you lose 60% of your salary.
Yeah, and why hasn't the Canadian team won the cup since 1993? Might be your answer right there. Not only is the weather bad, I don't make as much money. So why would I want to go there in free agency unless I'm John Tavares and I grew up with Toronto Maple Leaf sheets? Because
you remember when Stamkos was a free agent for 5 minutes?
They thought he was going to go to Toronto.
Yeah, he was like, everyone said he's going to Toronto. I remember being glued to NHL Network, watching it, being like, Stamkos is going to Toronto. I can't believe it. And then on the ticker, Stamkos resigns in Tampa. I'm like, well, that was anticlimactic. Now, bear in mind, I was young enough to not realize the tax situation in Florida, but I was just like, back then I was like, oh, that's just loyalty. No, it's taxes. It's money. It's money.
It's taxes, and he was already living there. Like, you don't have to move. Why am I going to move and take less money? Like, doesn't make any sense.
Now, like, hindsight's 2020. I get it. I would have made the same exact decision.
Yeah,
It's
Well,
warm.
I'll tell you what, I just looked at the guys. The salary cap for this coming season is 83.5. And then the following season, it goes to 87.5. And then the year after that, it goes to 92. So if they can get this taxing figured out, there's going to be some money flowing for sure. There's going to be money flowing anyways. But I just think it would be much more advantageous for the players if they could figure out some kind of just an equalization. That's all. I just don't the playing field.
I just don't. $92 million for the whole team.
Yeah.
Okay. What's Aaron Judge making per at bat?
Yeah. Well,
like, does the NHL ever look at their product and go, "What are we doing wrong, guys?" Like,
well, you can't compare the MLB to NHL because
the NBA,
but the NBA is
Mark
much
Cuban.
better.
Mark Cuban bought the Dallas Mavericks for like I forgot some like
$10 million, I think.
So yeah, it was like $12 million or something like that, right?
Because nobody cared about him.
And I just saw him on an interview, and somebody asked him, "How much is it valued at now?" He's like, $1 billion too. Like they're like, that's pretty good return on investment.
Well, that was also.
But if somebody bought the Dallas Stars, in what is it now? It's just it's $100 million more. Like it's like okay, well, why is it the NBA has had 1,000% increase in their value, and the NHL's had like 20%? Like it doesn't make any sense.
I think a lot of it has to do with not just the way the leagues market their players, but also how the players market themselves. Like, if you look at NBA players and their attitudes, they are staunchly different than NHL players and their attitudes. And more people seem to gravitate towards what the attitudes of the NBA players are. Like, as much as I'm sick of hearing it, like hearing about Ja Morant, but like he gets suspended for like 50 games for having a gun on social media, but that just increased his brand, and now he's selling jerseys. Like, it's all about individual brand in the NBA, and with most players in the NFL, like the Kelseys and Patrick Mahomes and all them, and even in baseball, where like the NHL, like they focus so much on the team branding, and this is just hockey culture as a whole. Like, they focus so much on like, here, we're going to buy this Florida Panthers blank jersey, instead of actually advertising players to put on it, where like you can't buy an NFL or NBA jersey or even an MLB jersey without a number on it already associated with a player. Like they focus so much on individual players branding in those leagues, and the NHL fails at it. Imagine if they actually let Connor McDavid be themselves, or Jack Eichel be themselves. Like
I don't think it's so much.
I don't think you're right about this, Ed. There's a reason why. Okay, because what most people don't get is everyone says hockey players are nice guys and everything like that, but waspy type of guys like that don't care about little guys, and it's all BS. You know what I mean? Like, now there are great guys. Like, I think a lot about PK Subban. I hate him. I don't like him. I don't like his commentary at all. But I know he's a really good philanthropic guy. Like, he gives a lot for that hospital in Montreal still, and he's not in Montreal, like so.
But PK Subban, he's so active on social media and promotes his own brand to where he's able to continue doing that, and he's successful.
And that's fine. I don't know that the league should get behind that, though. That's my point. It's great in PK Subban's case, right? But would it have been so great in Sean Avery's case? Probably not. Like, like Sean Avery's having trouble promoting his own brand because he's such an asshole. Like, sorry for the language, but that's the way it is. Like, and I'm a fan. He DM'd me before, and he was a jerk to me, and I'm like, big fan, Sean, but really, you're wrong about this, and you're being a jerk. But I'm a big fan, and like, like I don't know how else to put it. Like, I can't believe I'm DMing with Sean Avery, but at the same time, I'm like, stop telling people crap about COVID that's not true. Like, you know, like, but I'm a big fan, Sean. Like,
I hope this doesn't ruin our friendship.
First off, I'm a huge fan.
Big fan, but
Second
I feel
off,
that your information might kill some people, so please stop. Like,
huge fan. You're a jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and like, really, like, a lot of people, and I've heard a lot of, like, I've listened to other interviews and stuff with other hockey reporters, and they're like, you know, everyone's like, oh, so it's such a nice guy. It's like, not all the guys are nice. Like, not all the guys are nice. They're nice in front of the cameras. They're nice, but when you're backstage and you're a press agent, you're trying to get a quote, sometimes they're like, F off, man, get out of my face. I don't have time for you. Who are you with? I'm not with that. You know, like, these guys are just as finicky as anybody else. I don't know that's the best thing. Now, if you wanted to say, like, pick a guy from one team to market, and, like, you know, the Rangers would market, say, Zibanejad or Kreider, and you know, Boston would maybe Marchand or Omar or something like that. Like, I think that's better than, like, just letting the guys, like, free fall. Yeah, start putting things on your jerseys, you know, whatever. Like, we want you. We're gonna help back whatever crap you're talking about. Like, I think that would take away from the game, and I don't think it lends to basketball that much as it lends to these guys and their celebrity, you know.
But, like, I'll go with Zibanejad. He's doing Lollapalooza in Finland or something like that.
Sweden, I think.
Sweden. Right? But, like, there's a reason why every time I go to a Comets game, every Rangers jersey I see is either Panarin or Zibanejad. Panarin because he's absolutely nasty, and Zibanejad because every time I see a Rangers headline that's off the ice, it's him doing his DJ stuff.
Yeah.
That's
an interesting point.
You know, like, it's I see his name. And
you're saying that the league should get more behind promoting that.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think the league should. And I think the league should have his music on their website. Sure, it doesn't need to be, you know, like, front row center in front of highlights.
Right.
But if you click on his profile, throw a link onto his Spotify on there.
It's interesting.
You know, if these players have something that they want to back, like, let's say PK Subban in the hospital, when you click on his player profile, throw, like, his link to donate money to him, to his foundation.
Right.
That's not a bad idea, but I can guarantee you that'll never happen because NHL.com is by far one of the worst websites I've ever been to for anything. It is terrible. Their app is terrible, and it gets worse. Like, I don't know how they make it worse every year, but it does. It just gets worse. Like, they haven't changed the framework since 1996, and everything's built on top of that. Can't find anything. Try to look up a stat or a roster. Forget it. Hockey DB, fantastic.
Yep.
Every time I need something Hockey DB, like, instantly, right there. Oh, I want to see who was on the 94 Rangers roster in the playoffs who scored. How many games did Eddie Olczyk play in the 1994 Rangers playoffs? Oh, none. Okay, good. I got a Hockey DB in like a minute. NHL.com, I wouldn't even know where to find that. Like,
you gotta have a PhD to figure it out.
That's also coming with a complete overhaul of the way the league
find it. Like, it's ridiculous. Like,
the league, and who was it? Dana White just said it. He's just like, they're a bunch of clueless old white guys who don't know what their fans want. Like, he's not wrong.
No,
he's not wrong.
We could just get them to listen to this podcast.
Well, and we're only like,
you should be the official podcast of the NHL. Damn it,
we might as well be.
Yeah,
sue
me for wearing a Rangers hat.
Yeah, right.
That's why I wear all my hats backwards. I got the right now. They can't sue me. They didn't see it.
By the way, Reebok Rangers hat. I made my wife. I had one of these. It's from I think the 2016 playoffs or something. I had one of these. It's the best hat I've ever had that fit like perfectly, and it's a fitted cat. It's one of those little stretchy type of hats, and it's a Reebok. They only had 6 left in stock, so now there's only 5.
I would have bought them all. I would have bought them all.
I had another one. It was getting like gross because it's like an old hat and like it got stained a little bit from the sun or something. And I told my wife, I'm like, there's only a few left. I got a birthday coming up. Would you get me another one? Same hat, but like the Adidas hat, the
Fanatics hat.
I wouldn't even buy a Fanatics hat.
Fanatics.
So I mean, they're all. I mean, they're always making the wrong decision. Is my point. NHL, it moves backwards. They move backwards like
Nike jerseys. NHL Fanatics. Who's the outlier here? Who's the outlier?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not.
You know why? Because Nike doesn't want any part of their terrible marketing.
Yeah.
Because Nike's marketing department's going like, no, you guys got your head up your butt. We don't want to deal with you. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Well, they need to bring it back to the day. At least bring it back to the day where every team went out and found their own jersey company.
We need to go back in time to when hockey was better. Could you help us, Scott?
I think we could all agree on that, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you what, speaking of times when times were better, we mentioned earlier we have a busy week coming up here next week. Let's see, the NHL award show is June 26th. The draft is June 28th and 29th, but we're recording here on Tuesday, June 22nd, and tomorrow, June 23rd, they're going to announce the NHL 2023 Hall of Fame class. I'm sorry, the Hockey Hall of Fame class. So I want to go over this real quick with you guys because there are certain rules for the Hall, right? And let's see, I'm looking at your favorite NHL.com right now. And it says for the
How'd you find it?
I know, right?
Did you have to use Alta Vista on a search engine? Did you use Excite or Yahoo?
Like, but it says that each class is a maximum of 4 retired male players, 2 retired female players, 2 builders, or 1 builder and 1 retired official. So I want to go over, and I'll admit it, I don't know enough about the ladies that are on this list to really make the call, so to speak. So I do want to go over the NHLers that are on this list, and they are as follows: Corey Crawford, Henrik Lundqvist, Justin Williams, Tom Barrasso, Rod Brindamore, we just mentioned him earlier, Patrick Elias, Theo Fleury, Sergei Gonchar, Curtis Joseph, Reggie Leach, Alexander Maltsev, Boris Mikhailov, Alexander McGillney, Chris Osgood, and he's Jeremy Roenick, Keith Tkachuk, Pierre Turgeon, Mike Vernon, and Henrik Zetterberg. So you got to pick 4 of those. I think we can all agree that Hank's going to be a surefire
if Hank's not, then just burn the whole hall down. Really?
Well, let's just all agree on that before we have to call the fire department.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'm not going to agree just to piss off Mazzotti. Hank's not a Hall of Famer.
The first goaltender to win 30 games in his first 6 seasons in the NHL. He's not going to get in? Come on.
No, he's definitely in. I just want to piss you off.
Of those players I listed, was there anybody else on that list that you went, yeah, this guy's got to be in?
First of all, how is Reggie Leach not already in the Hall of Fame?
That's what I was wondering.
He's like the Flyers' all-time leading scorer. Like, if you're an all-time leading scorer for a franchise, I would think that would, like, automatically get you in the Hall of Fame. You know, he's got cups.
He had 2 50-goal seasons. Let's see, 69 points, 94 playoff games. He had 666 points in 934 regular season games. So it's too bad he couldn't get one more point just to get off that number, but that's okay. He won the Conn Smythe in 76. And let's see, he had an NHL record, which has since been tied 19 goals in 16 playoff games.
Okay.
So it might have been longevity that's keeping him out.
Well, I mean, it's kind of crazy that he hasn't made it in by now. Because I would say, like, okay, well, maybe he would get in on a soft year. You know what I mean? But, like, there's had to be many soft years since he retired.
Yeah,
and they're not putting him in for some reason. So, for how much people were talking about in the playoffs, apparently Keith Tkachuk. Because every time there was a Florida game, Keith Tkachuk got brought up, and it was like, oh, Walt Kachuk. First of all, stop calling him Walt Kachuk. Like, I'm sorry. I know that's his nickname and everything, but all you're doing is confusing people at home.
Yeah.
Because one day you're calling him Keith, the next day you're calling him Walt, next day you call him Keith, who likes to be called Walt. Like, it's like just call him Keith. Like, we know him as Keith. Like, that's who the fans know him as. You know, we don't call him Chucky or whatever the other nickname they called him in the locker room. You know, and like, so. If he's not put in, I don't know what, because they kept saying all playoffs long, right? Who I think is on that list that is a complete sin is Alexander McGillney. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know.
We say this every year.
To be honest with you, I really.
What's that?
I don't know how he's not in.
I think it's political.
That's what I'm saying. Like, ridiculous that it's been this long and McGillney's not in. McGillney was a superstar. Like, if Sergei Fedorov's in the Hall of Fame, then Alexander McGillney should damn well be in the Hall of Fame.
McGillney should have been in 10 times before Fedorov. They wanted to chase him out of Detroit. They hated him in Detroit. Like,
well, and I will say that, like with McGillney, not only for what he did on the ice, but off the ice, what he went through to get here.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
That was no sweetheart deal with the Soviet government. I mean, he defected. He risked his life to come over here.
Yeah,
and it was only good goal call from who was the guy that used to do the Buffalo play-by-play? What?
Rick Generat.
Generat, yeah. Well, my brother and I used to always say it from his calls. We'd be like, Alexander McGillney! It was the best. Like, playing street hockey in the front yard and score, and you'd be like, Alexander McGillney! It was the best. He was fantastic. There was not a player I was more pissed off the Devils got in my life than Alexander McGillney. Like,
the first pro hockey game I ever saw was an Albany Riverettes game. McGillney was playing for him, so I at least get to say I got to see McGillney play. But it's with him and with half of these other players. It's purely political. Like, either they piss somebody off or they just said something wrong in the past.
No, there's definitely a Canadian, like, Russian bias.
There is. Well, look at what's his name? I don't think
anybody would deny it. I think it's gone down in recent years.
It has. Ovechkin did a lot.
But there's been a long time, the Don Cherry. Get these guys out of here, back to Russia.
You still talk about the 72 Summit Series all the time, too. So
yeah, like anybody watched it. Like, they act like everybody watched that series. Like, it wasn't even on TV for most of your viewing audience in America.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys something. Like, for my list, obviously, Keith Tkachuk, I totally agree. He should be in. Alexander McGillney, of course, is a no-brainer. My fourth one, speaking of that era where the Summit Series was, is Boris Mikhailov. I mean, I know that's a blast from the past. It's an old name, but watch the movie Red Army sometime.
I know.
Take a look at what this guy did. He was one of the original Soviet powerhouse teams, right?
No,
and
he's terrifying.
And it was amazing what these guys were doing and what they went through. And to be perfectly honest with you, and I know there might be something what you said. I mean, there's some old leftover, we'll just call it hatred from the Cold War era or whatever. But this is a guy that deserves to be recognized in the Hall of Fame as well. He's already in the International Hall of Fame, or the IIHF Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. But I think that the NHL would be so much better served if they would promote some of these stories from the past and to really kind of try to put the pedestal and the spotlight on them. That would help grow the game a little bit. Just like we were saying they need to grow the modern players, I think that there is something that's totally missing that they haven't done with their past, and it's right there. Right?
That guy was one of the best players in the world.
What's that?
And that guy was one of the best players in the world for 20 years.
Exactly. But nobody knows. Nobody knows.
The fact that he's not in is like it makes me angry. Yeah. It's like it's like just what I was saying. It's like, oh, we can't have him in our Hall of Fame. He could be in the International Hall of Fame or the Russian Hall of Fame or the Slovak Hall of Fame or whatever he is, but he's a little too off color for the Hockey Hall of Fame here in holy Toronto.
I think what the NHL really kind of misses the boat on, and what the NFL does so well with like NFL films. Could you imagine if there was something like that for the NHL?
Oh, it'd be fantastic.
Awesome that would be.
They used to. Rock'em Sock'em Don Cherry tapes.
Three ESPN films. One is June 14th, 1994, which is the day the Rangers, or June 17th, 1994, the day the Rangers had their parade, and
O.J. Simpson.
Simpson was going on.
Round.
Yeah. And the Knicks were playing and whatever. Yeah. Like, that's one, okay? Covers the Rangers parade for like 2 seconds in that film. There's Big Shot about the jerk who had no money who bought the Islanders and then got kicked out, right? Not really having to do anything with hockey. And then there's the one about the Wayne Gretzky trade.
No, there's one about
there's also Miracles in Men, which is their version of Red Army.
And then there's
is that an ESPN film?
Yes,
it is.
Okay,
yes. And then they have one about the
McCarty and McCarty.
Oh wait, the new one. That's the newest one, right?
That was actually pretty good.
The Unrivaled.
Yeah.
Colorado, Detroit, right?
They're doing one about the creation of the Mighty Ducks, which I kind of like because they were huge in the 90s. The branding of that team was huge.
The branding is awesome. The branding, of course, they ruined it by getting rid of the mask and crossbow. Because everybody would rather see a webbed foot because that somehow equates to hockey.
I know, but it's
it's a duck's foot in the shape of the D.
When I look at that.
It's so stupid.
It is.
What the hell is that?
It's dumb. That's what it is. It's dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
The owner's
I had a Ducks hat. I loved it. It was a black hat with a eggplant brim, or no, it had the teal brim, and it had the logo right there. It was beautiful. And on the side, I think an eggplant. It said like Anaheim Mighty Ducks or something like that. And I was like,
see, the logo was great. I just couldn't.
One of my favorite hats I ever had. I love
the colors. I love the colors. The colors were so unique.
Yeah. That's black and orange. That's real original.
No, the original
Flyers West.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the original colors, the eggplant.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying you're right. You're right. What they do, they made them terrible colors. Like they never do anything right anywhere. It's hockey. Go backwards. Let's just go. At least the Rangers stay backwards. We got our second uniform, our second season, and we're friggin' sticking with it. Like that's it. We'll give you a Liberty jersey every now and again, but otherwise, just Rangers across. That's it. Like, they won't even wear this. This isn't even a jersey. This is their practice jersey. Like they won't be on the ice with the emblem. Like
they tried that in the 70s.
Yeah, they did. They did. Well, we're going to wrap up here real quick. Just so everybody knows, the AHL Calder Cup Finals are going to a Game 7.
Let's go Hershey.
That's going to be tomorrow night. Hershey and Coachella Valley. I was watching last night, and Coachella Valley kind of blew Hershey off the ice, but they said it was 100 degrees outside the arena out there. 100 degrees. Could you imagine?
And the ice was okay?
They said it was okay. They said the arena was ice cold. It's a brand new arena, though. So, I mean, that's,
okay.
Yeah. They built it this season.
Clinton Arena wouldn't survive 100 degree.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when the Utica made the playoffs, like in like 87 or 88, and like they'd have to stop for like steam and have the guys circle. I remember that in the NHL too. Like where it's like it's too hot outside, ice is evaporating. You can't. You're 3 rows back. You can't see what's happening. They'd have the guys skate around and like vortex the steam out, and they'd play, and then like they'd clean the ice in between. It would fix itself. But
back. Oh boy, too much fun. But yeah, that'll be tomorrow night on AHL TV, which I wish was on NHL Network. That'd be kind of fun. I mean, what are they going to do? Replay NHL tonight for the 17th time of the day, or play Game 5 from the Vegas Florida
how
game.
do I even get NHL Network? Okay,
DirecTV.
because through my cable provider, it's not like an add-on for $2.99. I had to spend an extra $60 to get the highest cable package possible to get NHL Network. How's that for marketing? Your product.
They're doing a bang-up job.
Yeah, they're just doing great.
NHL's so good.
I can't just like go on and be like, I'm going to buy an NHL. Oh, here's the NHL app. And on there, I could just subscribe to NHL Network. No, that would be too difficult. No. Our website doesn't work like it. It was built in 1995. You don't understand.
We don't want
Tim
to go down.
Berners-Lee, who created the internet, created our website. Okay, so sorry.
As a sport, the NHL,
man.
hockey itself should be so much more popular because it takes so much more skill, and they just fumble it time and time again.
Well, here
I feel like the only person in the country who's ever been converted over to being a hockey fan and seeing like how amazing the sport really is Charles Barkley.
It's Charles Barkley.
That's it. There's no way. And Charles Barkley's been saying it for like 20 years. Like, you guys got to watch hockey. Like, and everyone's like, "You're crazy, man. You're crazy. Like, you're crazy."
He talks to Shaq, and Shaq's just sitting there, just
you don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Shaq's sitting there cross-eyed, being like, "Oh, what's hockey? I don't know what the sport is."
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. We're going to do a Zamboni time machine, and maybe the NHL will be inspired by this one because there's something to this, maybe for promotional value. I think you're going to like it too. This is going to be really fun. Anyways, the Zamboni time machine is brought to you by Zamboni.com, and the Zamboni name is used for permission. I got visuals for this one. Here we go. Bang. This week, the Zamboni time machine takes us back to December 1979 and the release of Lafleur, the Guy Lafleur disco album. The Hockey Hall of Famer and Montreal Canadian superstar released the album in both English and French at the height of the disco craze. Lafleur was, and still is, a god in Montreal, and just like today, in the 1970s, Montreal was well known for its nightlife. Montreal was loaded with discotheques, which Lafleur was quite fond of visiting. The album is a mixture of songs and spoken word hockey instruction. Guy does not sing the songs, but does the spoken word hockey instruction over a disco music background, complete with backing vocals. It's sort of like a hockey coach beats Studio 54. The two songs on the album are called Face Off and Power Play and were performed by local Montreal disco musicians. One of the more interesting lyrics from Power Play went, "If it ever gets down to it, baby, you know, I'll get my way with my power play." A poster of a bare-chested Lafleur and his jersey hanging behind him was included with the album. I can't make this up. Sadly, Lafleur, the Guy Lafleur disco album, was not a huge success, as apparently not a lot of people outside of Montreal cared about Guy's passion for disco music. Interestingly enough, the album ended up being a hockey trendsetter, as a couple of years later, with the help of future Growing Pains star Alan Thicke, the Los Angeles Kings Triple Crown line of Dave Taylor, Marcel Dion, and Charlie Simmer would record Forgive My Misconduct, which we have another visual for right there. The New York Rangers also got in on the act when Phil Esposito and the Rangers Rockets recorded Hockey Sock Rock. Shockingly, neither of these songs would make it into the Billboard charts, but you can find both on YouTube under Forgive My Misconduct and Hockey Sock Rock with John Davidson. And that, my friends, concludes this week's trip on the Zamboni Time Machine. See that? Now, if the NHL would just go to something like that, the league would just take off. Look at those guys. Look like they're having so much fun.
They're not winning hockey games, that's for
sure.
Well,
no, but, you know, they're having fun doing it. That's all that counts.
Lafleur was.
Yeah.
I don't even. What year was that for the Rangers? 85? I don't even think they made the playoffs.
No, the Kings and the Rangers were early 80s. It was right after that Guy Lafleur thing.
81, I think.
Yeah, because they're figuring, we'll capitalize on this. This is going to be great.
It was
Rangers were just speed bumps for the Islanders back then.
But if you could, like I said, you can get those songs on YouTube. It is hilarious. It is so funny. You got to watch the videos.
Yeah, I've seen them.
I saw the Rangers one. That one's bad.
Yeah. Marcel
the Rangers one is particularly bad. Yeah. I think Ronnie Duguay's in it, right, with his hair. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, the Macho Man, it brings you back to the Macho Man Randy Savage, Be a Man.
Yeah.
favorite album.
He's
of all
Walt
time.
Duguay to all his friends, not Ronnie. I'm sorry. We call him Walt. We call him Ronnie.
Yeah.
His friends know him as Ron Venwall.
Oh man,
Shlomo Duguay to all his friends. It goes by Shlomo, but
yeah.
we call him Walt. Sometimes he's Ron. Whatever. Like.
Well, guys, that was a lot of fun. It really was. And, like I said earlier, we got a lot more to talk about next week. So much going on, which we'll probably promote better than the league. So
that's a guarantee. That's a guarantee.
All we got to do is put one Facebook post and we already beat the league.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
We're already on more media platforms than the NHL, so that shouldn't be hard.
I've seen the same clip of Mark Stone lifting the cup in slow-mo 100 times, and I haven't seen anything else.
Yeah, it's like, come on, change your tune a little bit, would you? He's somebody else's spotlight.
Like, I haven't seen it, like, on their social media. I haven't seen a single video of Marcia So getting the Conn Smythe, and I've seen 1,000 times Mark Stone getting the cup. Like, the NHL's such a joke. Show everybody.
I haven't seen anything other than the drones. Did you see what they did with those drones over the arena?
No,
I
haven't even seen
spelling
that.
out like word Vegas 2012. Like they were all lit up drones. They made them into a big cup that like rotated. Like that was cool. That was crazy.
That does seem cool. I wish the NHL would show me things like that.
No, the NHL doesn't have the technology for that. YouTube knows I like hockey, so they put it into my feed automatically. But the NHL, that's like voodoo to them. They don't understand how that works.
We can't have that.
We don't mess with that voodoo. Voodoo's bad stuff.
If the NHL was smart, they would hire, and I hate to bring him up, they would at least give Steve Dangle a shot because at least he's marketable.
No,
I hate bringing him up, but at least give him a shot because at least he's a personality, not just the blandness of like here's the highlights and then it just shows like the same pass 4 times.
I mean,
yeah, but Skip Bayless is a personality.
All they do is give Linda Cohn in the crease. Linda Cohn's awesome. I love Linda Cohn. Like, put her out there. She is direct. She's frank. She's funny. She knows the damn game. Like,
there you go.
Like, and she's a woman. Like, give it, so you could be like pro, a feminism or you're pro, moving forward in life. Everything doesn't have to be a guy's job. And she's she's better than every guy. Like,
well, she certainly deserves airtime. Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, they give Linda Coney in the crease. On the night she gets off, it's Ardo O'Cal. Who? What name is that? Dude, you're on TV. Change your name. Like, I'm like, and he's okay at like, here are the highlights, but like, nobody knows who this guy is. Nobody cares. He's not, into the hockey. It doesn't seem like he is. I don't know who he is. Like, I haven't seen him for 20 years already covering hockey like Linda Cohn. Like,
well, like I said, we could do so much better of a job of promoting the league than the league can. So,
hey, I have employment opportunities are available. ESPN, give me a call.
That's
hire us.
Exactly. We'll be
hire us.
NHL.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, listen. Again, this has been a lot of fun. We got a lot to talk about again next week, so let the good times roll. But in the meantime, for Ed Stefaniak, for Chris Bizzatti, I'm Scott Kimball. Thanks for watching and listening, and we will see you next time on Marty's Illegal Stick.